But first, in just a moment, I will be joined by former Alaska Governor Sarah Palin, who recently said that if Republicans want to, quote, annoy a liberal, they should vote for former Speaker of the House, Newt Gingrich, in the Florida primary. So does that mean she is ready to make an official endorsement? Joining me now from the great state of Alaska, where it's 50 below zero, is Fox News contributor and former Governor Sarah Palin. How are you, Governor?
I'm doing great, Sean. How are you?
All right, not quite 50 below, but it is below zero, and it's good to have you back. All right, you said that, and I wasn't sure if you were answering the question. I read the transcript, and you were on with Judge Pirro, and because when I asked you about South Carolina, you said if you would vote in that state, you would have voted for Newt. I asked you about Florida. You said, you don't think your endorsement matters. Does that mean if you were voting tomorrow, you would vote for Newt? Am I interpreting that right or not?
Yeah, I'd keep the process going. You know, again, there's only been 3 states who have even had opportunity to chime in on who the nominee should be, and we all have to ask ourselves who is best able to defend our republic, who is most passionate, who is able to garner the support of independents and Tea Party patriots and those who will need to have that amassed energy and resource as we go into the general election to face Barack Obama, who has been sharpened and shaped through the School of Hard Knocks, because I think virtues learned there will be very beneficial in serving this our country. But you know, we find out who that person is. We measure the man through competition. This competitive process I would like to see continue, because the more candidate information revealed, the more ideas debated, the fairer it is for the electorate. And we know that competition, it will breed success for the United States of America. Competition, it doesn't just shape character, it reveals it. And, you know, one of the characteristics that we need this go around, Sean, in order to save our country is we need a big dog who will bite when they rattle our cage. And they, when I speak of they domestically, I'm talking about government big spenders who can't balance a budget because they've never done it before, who would lock up our resources, who would continue to amass debt, who can't argue against the guts of Obamacare and other liberties being stripped from our choices in a free market, and ultimately we being slaves to government and to other countries. We need a big dog who's passionate about not embracing the status quo but shaking that all up.
You know, it's funny you talk about the process, because this is an ongoing process. And it's interesting, just when I think I have all my questions asked and answered by the candidates, you know, there's almost new developments every day. You would think after 19 debates we'd know everything that we could possibly know about them. But what I observed after South Carolina and Newt's 2 stellar debate performances, I felt in the Florida debates that both Rick Santorum and Mitt Romney got stronger. And the reason they got stronger is because they knew they had to step up, because Newt really had these moments that defined him in South Carolina. So we are learning a lot about them, even after 19 debates and after tomorrow 4 primaries, right?
Yeah, and that's the beauty of competition. Look at your son with his tennis competition. He would not grow as a tennis player if he were only to be in competitions where he knew he was going to win and he wasn't going to be challenged. And no, you know, you got to rise to the occasion. And yes, you certainly saw Santorum especially do that in that last debate, as he took on the guts of Obamacare, and he did challenge the other candidates who had in the past voiced some support for government mandating fewer choices in health care for the American public.
Yeah. All right, let me go to this piece that you wrote Friday, and I referred to it a number of times on Friday night's program because you released it late Eastern time, by the way. And it was "Cannibals and GOP Establishment Employ the Tactics of the Left" was the headline on this. And you said, talking about last week, leading into this Florida primary, that we have witnessed something very disturbing. And you talked about the establishment that fought Ronald Reagan in the 1970s and continues to fight. You say the grassroots Tea Party movement today has adopted the tactics of the left and the media, using the media for the politics of personal destruction. It's gotten pretty vicious now between Newt and Governor Romney in particular. What are you trying to say here?
It's gotten vicious, and I'm not whining about the viciousness, and I don't think anybody should, but what I will call people out on is when they choose to lie about a candidate. And what we have seen in the politics of personal destruction has been based on lies told about individual candidates. And whether it is a PAC that is producing false narratives in ads, or whether it is a candidate falsely accusing another candidate themselves, they need to be called out. That is the politics of personal destruction. That is why so many people feel disenchanted from with our political process today. We feel disenfranchised from the way it should be, with good people wanting to run for office based on fairness. It's not a bad thing to ask for fairness. Fairness means just telling the truth and debating relevant ideas, relevant solutions, not all this petty personal stuff.
What specifically, though, is bothering you? Because you even went further when you said we're going to look back and realize this week that something has changed, that this week is beyond the pale, unprecedented in GOP primaries. What is it that motivated you watching this race to say that?
Yep. Specifically, enough was enough when I started seeing this rewritten history about Newt Gingrich's relationship with Ronald Reagan and the Reagan Revolution in the 70s and in the 80s, how he, under Reagan and Reagan's advisors, their tutelage, how it was able to help shape Newt Gingrich and his ideas on how to balance the budget and how to reform welfare and how to look for ways to create more efficiencies in government so we could cut budgets and we could cut taxes, and that would spur economic growth. When I saw that rewritten by some in the establishment, I said, for what it's worth, I'm going to voice my opposition to that false narrative being rewritten. That doesn't mean that I'm out there only boosting one candidate. I'm going to continue to say good things about every GOP candidate because anybody's going to be better than Obama. But enough was enough of the lies being told about Newt Gingrich and his relationship with Ronald Reagan and within the Reagan Revolution.
Specifically, when you said it's about the GOP establishment and versus the Tea Party grassroots and independent Americans, explain who this establishment is versus the Tea Party. In other words, because I don't know if the Tea Party completely are endorsing any one candidate over the other.
The establishment would be those who do embrace the status quo and maybe give voice to some reform that's needed, but they haven't engaged in the reform. Like I say, they've never been ones to work on balancing a budget. They've never balanced the federal government budget before. That hasn't happened since Newt Gingrich and Bill Clinton together worked on actually accomplishing that. It would be those who embrace the status quo when it comes to crony capitalism, and knowing that insider trade information that is this privileged benefit that's given to Congress, it's wrong, it's unethical, it should be illegal, and yet they've been a part of it and they've allowed it to continue. Things like that really make voters sick to their stomachs and be quite disgusted with our politicians and our politics today. Anybody who would embrace that is part of that establishment. Both sides of the aisles are to blame.
All right, Governor, stay right there. When we come back, I want to ask you about, and you talk about the good and the bad about Newt. You talk about the things that you'd like to see in Governor Romney and Rick Santorum. So I'll ask you the strengths and the weaknesses of all three when we get back, and Ron Paul. But right now, we are continuing to be joined by former Alaska Governor, Fox News contributor Sarah Palin. You said in your piece, you said if you were in Florida, you would vote for Newt tomorrow. You said, we all know Newt Gingrich. He's known to us both the good and the bad. What do you see as his strengths and his weaknesses?
I see his experience in Washington actually as a strength heading into a competition against Barack Obama. Again, he who has been one of the few to work on a balanced budget in the federal government, that is what we need. He being quite passionate about shaking things up and not allowing the status quo to continue, that certainly is a strength of Newt's.
All right, and weakness?
And weaknesses, you know, gosh, I hate to even list with all four candidates what their weaknesses are, because they're already being bombarded by one another what all their weaknesses are. At this point, let me just talk about their strengths. And I have such faith and respect for the wisdom of the people. I know that they are going to make up their own minds and who it is that they want.
All right, then you talked about, for example, in this piece that you have great respect for Governor Romney, but you do have some questions about him. You said, I respect his success and him, concerns about his record and whether or not as a politician he consistently applied conservative principles. Now, this is, Newt is making that argument that he's changed on some positions, abortion and guns, etc. Are you getting convinced, as he says, I am a conservative, I'll repeal Obamacare, I'll lower taxes? Is he convincing you with these arguments that, in fact, in other words, do you have more faith that he would govern the way that you would want a conservative to govern?
I think if he is surrounded by hardcore conservatives who understand that government's not the solution, he would be kind of directed into more of those fiscally conservative positions and socially conservative positions that I think that the majority of our center-right nation would respect and expect. I respect Mitt Romney's success. You know, his father worked very hard and his father was quite wealthy. His father was a governor and he ran for president. He's got kind of that lineage within his family of success and politics, things that worked in the past that allowed his dad to be successful. He's learned from that, and I think that is to be admired, as is Mitt Romney, obviously a good family man in my eyes. I respect that.
Okay, let's go to Rick Santorum. It's interesting because Newt and Romney are battling each other so much. I think Frank Luntz said that he thought, and his focus group thought, that Rick Santorum won the debate, the last debate. I think he's gotten stronger in the debates as well. He did win Iowa when the final votes were counted in the caucus in Iowa. What about Rick Santorum?
I am a great admirer of Rick, and I admire that, you know, he was a warrior out there on the field for all those years, taking those shots because he's quite bold about his socially conservative views and how he believes that getting back to a stronger Judeo-Christian foundation for our nation is going to be key to success and prosperity and security for our nation, and I so respect that. Rick Santorum has provided great benefit to all of these debates. And again, it's another reason why I want this competition to continue. I want to hear more from Rick Santorum as he talks about not just the socially conservative positions that he believes our nation should take and stand strong upon, but fiscally also, and how with our foreign policy positions, we need to be friends with Israel. We need to help protect our allies, and we need not to be an isolationist nation. He's got so much to add in these debates. It's quite respectful.
I've asked you this about Ron Paul. You agree with him on economic policy, or a lot of it, but not on foreign policy.
I respect Ron Paul and his supporters for the energy and the fiscal sanity, the ideas that they bring forth when we talk about a nation that is going further and further in debt, as our nation is, and what we're going to do about it. His austerity ideas, I think, are absolutely right on. I respect that, and you know, I just want to encourage him too to keep being bold, keep speaking about what he believes the solutions are for our economy, and you know, a lot of people are listening.
All right, Governor, it's always good to see you. Thanks for being with us, and I think this might be a good admonition to people, though, to not remember at the end of the day, one person has got to defeat Obama at the end of this process. I think it's a good admonition. Thanks for being with us.
Thank you.